Hi, everybody. You're now experiencing the Gretna Bill Show.
What do we got today?
Well, first of all, we had a great mountain bike ride yesterday, and I was turned on to this. Now, hopefully, Josh, you can give a shout out to Theragun, because I sold about, I'm not kidding you, I sold about 7 or 8 of these yesterday, just because after the ride, I broke it out, and
look at that, you burned the battery down, you used it that much. Here we go.
Huh?
Look at that.
Hear that? Look at that. Oh, dude, you wouldn't believe it.
10 years ago, that was illegal.
They're not allowed to. Oh, and the back right here. This might take care of your system. Okay.
Thanks for letting the world know, Billy.
Sorry. So anyway, we're trying a little reverse marketing here. Theragun, we'll reach out to them, and we'd love to sponsor your product on the show. And wow, like I said, I sold 5 or 6 yesterday, just showing people. Tremendous product. All right. So before we get started, let's get the sponsors out of the way first. So, of course, we have Lupine Lighting Systems, lupinenorthamerica.com. We've got GUERCIOTTI Bicycles, GUERCIOTTIUSA.com. We've got Deluxe Bikes, downtown Lebanon. And, John, so it must be nice to carry 2 brands that are riding in the tour right now. And I'm pretty stoked to see that. Scott and Bianchi. In fact, Bianchi's...
First and fifth.
Right.
First with Primotion, 5th with Yates.
Wow.
Scott's. It would be nice if we could get bikes, but that's for another podcast. Yeah, it's awesome.
And finally, of course, Josh Zaring Studios, downtown Mount Gretna, sort of. Nice logo. Jay-Z. Yeah, that's a nice logo.
There might be some copyright infringement there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with stage 10 today. And John.
Tuesday, September 9th, a week to yesterday, or last week, whatever. Last Tuesday.
Correct.
Back after the rest day, pancake flat, 170K. And came down to a big sprint, and it was Sam Bennett getting the win with Caleb in second, Sagan in third, and I believe was that the stage that all hell broke loose at the finish with.
No, that was
the next day.
That was the next day.
But just a good straightforward. It was great to see Sam get that win, take over the green.
We had a couple of questions that we could get out of the way. So. About the winner, or let's just say, what's the average salary of the top GC contenders? Did you do some homework on that? What do you think?
Now, Sagan's the highest paid guy, according to what I could find, and he's somewhere in the $4 to $5 million range. Froome and the GC guys, the guys that are winning the Grand Tours, they're all somewhere between 1.2, 1.5, and up to 4, depending on who it is in the team. I was surprised to see Fabien Aru making the kind of money he's making at UAE. I think he takes a serious pay cut coming here soon.
Yeah, I would think.
But then you'll see a guy like Pogacar jump right up there into that plus $1 million range for sure. And the same with Primoz after this, if they're not already there.
And that's exclusive of race day winnings over the course of the year,
that's
correct?
just the salary. And I don't even know if the contingency money, and a guy like Sagan, he's getting money from 100%. He's getting money from Specialized. He's getting money from a whole bunch of different
over and
above his salary. I don't know how that's factored in there, to be honest with you, because that stuff's kept hush hush. I mean, that's really, in my feeling, it's none of our business what these guys make. I do feel they're grossly underpaid compared to a lot of other professional athletes.
What was the other question that we got?
Tubeless and tubular tires.
Correct.
And for what I've been able to find out from the industry, it's probably about a 75-25 split right now. On any given day, it's still 75% tubular. You know, the sew up glued on tire on the rim, excellent ride, excellent feel. You can ride on flat for a while, which is why at this level, these guys want them in most cases, but the feel is just phenomenal. But Tubeless is definitely developing a following for sure. And, as going forward into the future, I think, as that technology develops and gets better and better, you're going to see more guys, especially this younger generation, that might be what they know and what they appreciate and what they like. So I think you'll see probably a 50-50 split within 5 years, if not more so for Tubeless.
Who rode with us yesterday was Ben Strine, and he was saying that I don't even know why I went with tubulars on the new set of wheels we got from GUERCIOTTI, and he said I should just go to tubeless, and then he said, but they're so cool.
Well,
it's still a cool pain in the ass.
My feeling as far as racing goes, I mean, in my experience, I use nothing but tubulars and cross, and if the feel, you can run them 20 pounds, 22, 23 pounds of air in them next to nothing. You really, if they're done properly, and I haven't seen a tire roll in a long time. So if they're done properly in that, you don't have any problems.
So stay with me on this one. So when you got a clincher, you've got more of an oval, right? You've got a tubeless. The profile of the tire is more of an oval. But when you got a tubular, it's a round.
Yeah.
So that's why it rolls better and corners better. It's round. It's not ovalized.
It conforms to the ground better.
Right.
It just
does.
The feeling on the road is unbelievable. The feeling in cross, in my opinion, is second to none. We'll see what happens in the future, but I can guarantee, yesterday in Switzerland was the first UCI race, and I would say probably everybody in the top 50 were on tubulars. It's still the way to go. And tire patterns that have been around for 20 years. But, as far as the tour is concerned, they're going bigger. I mean, there's very few teams running anything smaller than a 25 or 26 mil tire. And I believe a lot of these guys are probably on 27s and 28s. The ride is incredible.
Agreed. So that whole rolling resistance thing, I can remember Kyle Ackerman coming to me when I had the shop and buying 10 tubulars. And they were 19Cs because he wanted to do 160 PSI. That was the way they thought that was less rolling resistance, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because you get that tire jittering and
I think I've cured everybody of the 19 or even the 23 mils tires in this area. Thank God. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. When I think back to when I started in the late 80s, the biggest tire you put on, you got laughed at if you had bigger than a 20. It was insane. Hard as rocks. I mean, just the ride was terrible. But now everybody's come to their senses and it's gotten better. Stage 11.
Stage 11, that was Sam Bennett, Wout van Aert, and Brian Cocard.
Well, Ewing got the win. Sam second, Wout third. Pete got relegated in the sprint because of his laying the head on Wout, coming 4 abreast to the finish at 40 plus mile an hour. Peter lost the green with the points he lost. Sagan. I mean, it was a lot of crashes. FDJ was solo for a while in a break, but it begs the question of the sprinting and stuff. I mean, Sagan has a history of this. I don't really find anything wrong with it. I think it's sprinting. I kind of took offense a little bit to some of the geniuses online saying how Wout should stick to what he's good at and all this kind of shit. And, Wout's proved this entire tour that he's as strong or stronger than anybody here as far as across the board. It's just, it is what it is. I thought both riders held their line pretty good. Yeah. But then when I did see the overhead shot, I felt as though that Sagan was a little bit, but you're going for the win, and you're gonna. I mean, it's kind of an old school way of thinking, which is cool. He laid the shoulder and head on him, and what saved the rest of the guys on the left side of Wout was the fact that Wout knows how to ride a bike and didn't crash and take down half the field at 40 mile an hour. So again, it's not that I'm a Wout fanboy. I mean, I love the guy. I think he's awesome, and we're going to talk more about him later for sure. But it's. The iconic picture so far coming out of this tour is going to be Wout flicking him off at 40 mile an hour crossing the finish line. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The UCI, I don't necessarily agree with relegating Peter in this sprint. I don't think he really did anything wrong. He did what all the sprinters through time and history have done. And, it kind of sucks. He's diplomatic about it, but I know he was pissed off. I mean, it's
so he's also, everyone says that, maybe he's washed up. I don't think that at all because he had some bad luck this race so far. He dropped the chain in that one stage where he should have got a bunch of points. And then, of course, relegation got 0. 2 small things that could change the whole picture.
Absolutely. Well, he'd still be in green if it wasn't for that. And And the rest of the peloton has paid for his anger, stages 12 and 13 and going forward. I mean, they put Bora at the front and they've just put the hammer down. And
it was glorious. The wrath.
The
Bora.
Poor Bora riders in the bus every morning are like, oh, shit, here we go again,
not
man.
again,
Punching
man.
in. They're on the trainers in the morning, getting warmed up, and because they know what's coming. I mean, they're driving.
Yeah, those guys were all pro. The Bora team and they drove Bennett off.
And the
next
Bennett
stage
can't climb. I mean.
So yeah, and when you look at all the sprinters or even the mid-range guys, Sagan is still the best. He could climb better than any of them.
He's probably, and again, you see a guy like Sagan, he's an all-rounder. He's been around a long time now, 3 world championships back to back.
With an exception, I'd say Quentin Tarantino,
Yeah, he's good at, he's a film guy, but.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. What's his name? Tarantino, no.
Trentin.
Yeah,
Matteo Trentin.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
he's been climbing.
But you got to put a guy like Wout in there too. I mean, Wout's an all-rounder. Wout's shown that he can obviously really climb, especially yesterday. But he can certainly mix it up in the sprints and in the flats. And there's, you got to put GVA in there. You put Van Avermaet in that group, and there's all these young guys coming. I mean,
maybe.
Yeah, we'll get to stage 12 here last Thursday. That was. Awesome day.
At stage 12, we still had 163 riders out of starting 176. That's pretty incredible.
It's been
13 teams were still intact out of a total of 22.
It hasn't been uneventful. There's been a lot of crashes and stuff, but these guys, I think it's the fact that a lot of them are still really fresh coming off the COVID break and but it's starting to show. Yesterday, Saturday, it shows. But stage 12 was Mark Hershey. Finally got that win, tried and tried, never gave up. He got that win solo, which was awesome. Another great descent. The Sunweb's having an incredible tour, young guys.
Mark Hershey.
Exactly. Pierre Rolland in second and Soren Craig Anderson in third, a harbinger of things to come. He had a great attack, great descent, rode away from him. I mean, he's not the smallest of guys, U23 world champion. We talked about him last show. But, what helped this was it was the longest stage. And Bora laid it down at the start again to get rid of us, to get a few points more for Sagan to start calling his way back for the green jersey.
And in all fairness, he did win the field sprint and just edged out GVA.
Yeah. It was.
Hershey, he had third in stage 2, I think.
Second,
and then a third,
and then a third,
and then a third, and then today,
and then
of course.
got that stage win last Thursday. It's awesome for this kid. Awesome job.
And it's important to point out here, we've been talking about this, that Sunweb has the overall youngest team.
Yeah, they brought. I mean, if you would have talked to them 3 weeks ago and said, "Hey, you guys are going to do this, this, and this, and this tour," the management probably would have said, "Yeah, well, that would be nice, but I mean, we just want to survive. We're bringing a young team. They really don't have a GC guy per se. They will next year again because Roman Bardet is moving over to Sunweb. So we'll see what he can do with them. We're going to obviously talk about him here very soon.
That day was a tribute day to Raymond Polidor.
Yep.
Popular.
Matthew Vanderpool's grandpa, Raymond Polidor, the eternal second.
Yeah.
His daughter married Andre Vanderpool, Matthew's father. Matthew won yesterday's stage at the Tirreno Adriatico in solo fashion a little bit. It was awesome. Yesterday was a really good day for the lowland boys, the cyclocrossers. There was a Wout did incredible. Matthew won a stage in Tirreno, and Gianni Vermeesh. I got to look here once.
Race of 2 C's.
Yep.
Tirreno and
Adriatico ends the day with a time trial. Simon Yates, Adam Yates' brother, is in the lead for Mitchelton Scott. So we'll see what happens there later on this morning. But, another cyclocrosser won a great gravel road race, the Antwerp Port Classic, or whatever they're calling it now.
Who was
Belgium. I think it was Johnny Miesman or Gianni Vermeesh or whatever. I could look it up real quick, but it doesn't matter. He's a grass burner. So I'm yesterday I was super stoked. I mean, to see cross started in Switzerland, UCI. I mean, it's pretty cool that Europe, they can still race cross in the red zone and stuff, but everything in the US has been canceled. We won't go there. But stage 13.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Tim DeClercq, up to this point in time,
Billy's favorite rider,
had nearly 10% of the workload of the whole race. 10%. That means he's out front and driving it by himself.
For Ks and Ks and Ks.
for K's and K's and K's.
And that's not going to go down anytime soon because Bennett and Sagan are locked in this epic struggle for the green jersey. And, it's getting ugly. It's going to go the whole way to Paris for sure. Like Sean Kelly.
Stage 13. What were these two names? Because next 6 stages on our next podcast, when we do it next Monday, which will be the end of the tour,
recap end of the tour extravaganza.
Right, with Dutch pronunciations. Pennsylvania Dutch. But at any rate, stage 13 is
was
what?
Chantal Guyon to P. Marie Cantel. I think that's close.
Puy
Marie. Puy is the volcanic area, the Massif Central in France. See, as I get older, I'm paying attention more. I used to kind of laugh at Bobke, and now it's like, the dude's pretty cool.
Agreed. I love the history.
Billy next year will have a beard down to about mid-chest so he can emulate Bobke, maybe.
Stage 13, who'd we have? Martinez, Kamna, and...
Great, yep.
And
Danny Martinez, Leonard Kamna, and Max Schachmann. Bora, again, puts two guys up there in the front. They drove it hard in the beginning.
And their fruits of the labor was Kamna.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sucks because Martinez was so strong. It's just so strong. He bridged up to the Bora rider, and Kamna sat on him, came up with him. And he just took them apart. That was a great win for EF, the U.S.-based team, who were still having a great tour with another great ride from Nielsen Powell, who's the first Native American in the Tour de France, which is really cool.
Nielsen Powell.
I'm not sure how far back that goes or if he's getting any casino money, but we hope he is.
So 1947, that was the smallest time gap since 1947. And again, we talked about young riders being on the Sunweb team. And I wanted you to comment a bit on what we believe to be no doping because of the young riders and their training regime.
They just recover better. It's that simple. I mean,
there's no doping going on. I don't think.
I mean, if there is, it's something we won't find out about for 5 years, probably. I just don't see it. I mean, we're going to touch on that from yesterday's stage, but the overall after this day was Primo, Taddy, Egan, Rigoberto, and Quintana was the top 5. Jumbo's looking more and more like a machine. They get the job done. Their guys are well placed. They know what they're doing. They're doing a great job. I mean, there's already been all these allegations coming out about Jumbo and team. I kind of turn that stuff off. I don't. This was a really good stage. This is when the race really started, up and down the whole way. 2 Frenchmen were out. One was out of the race and the other one was pretty much out. He was dropped and it was all she wrote with him. But Romain Bardet crashed in a kind of an unassuming little crash around the corner. Quintana was in that also. It took out Bauke Mollema. He's out of the race. And Romain Bardet gets up, falls right down.
Concussion protocol.
I saw it on the replay right off the bat. And it was funny because I was watching it. And I thought to myself, man, that don't look good. He shouldn't be getting back on that bike. He got back on the bike and finished the stage and it ended up he had a real minor brain bleed with a concussion. And it's like, that's something the UCI and the sport needs to look out for. I mean, yesterday's crash with the Colombian that was taken down. I mean, he looked like he hit his head pretty hard when he hit the deck and he got back on the bike and kept going and crashed again. And now he's out of the race and we'll talk about him in a second. But that's another thing that the UCI should be worried about instead of seeing how deep they can line their pockets.
So the winners there probably were starting to see Richie Port come into his own by that stage.
Yeah.
And the losers, certainly the French.
They dropped everybody. I mean, it was after this day, it was Colombian Slovenia show, with 5 and, the 3 and 2 in the
early
top 5,
break,
which was
did
impressive.
See TJ finally. Got to see his face.
Yeah. He's been
but
nice and quiet. I mean, had a really decent, so I think up until this point, he's had a really decent tour. I think he's embracing kind of like that road captain, super domestique, part of, being in his later years of his career.
Speaking of that, if you look around all the good teams over time, or at least the last 20 years, first of all, they've all seemed to have a strong man up front that's got experience. For example, would you say Ekimov was that kind of a guy to the Armstrong teams?
Oh, absolutely.
And then would you say that obviously Tim de Klerk is that for De Koning?
And these teams all have 3, 4, 5 guys like that.
To your point, Jumbo, He's got Tony Martin.
Yeah.
Unsung hero. He's out there.
Yeah, he's not there because he's winning races anymore. He's there because he can sit
I
at the
would
front
say
for 2 hours,
Ineos
3 hours.
maybe has Luke Groh.
Oh, they definitely do.
Yeah.
You got Ian Stannard. You got every World Tour team's got 5 rowers on the roster that win, one race every 5 years.
Yeah.
They're not there to win races. They're well paid. These guys are well sought after. These guys have plenty of opportunities to move on to other teams every year when their contracts come up.
And
because
TJ is that guy for
Absolutely.
EF.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy for him. I think TJ extends his career another few years, if not longer.
One of 3 Americans.
Yeah. And all 3 Americans are doing awesome. Yesterday, Sepp Kuss did real well. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I have to agree with some of our cohorts on podcasts and what I think they were setting it up for him yesterday. And it was a little too late, but going to stage 14 this past Saturday.
Yeah, after stage 13, we had Roglic, Pogačar, Bernal, Uran, Quintana. Then
it was
Lopez,
looking good for my
Yates,
picks.
Landa, Port, and Moss.
Looking good for my picks.
It was.
Yeah. But then Saturday and Sunday come along.
So, going into stage 14, we're finally starting to see a little bit of the Ineos team breakdown.
Yeah, for sure.
Bernal supposedly had the numbers that they wanted from him, and he couldn't hang. And his face, the experience comes through a little bit because he should have been, in my opinion, been showing a little bit more of a poker face than what he was showing.
Well,
he was like, "Oh man," it was like
he's young. I mean, the guy wins.
We got to remember that, right? He's still a young guy.
Yeah, he's young, and the shame of it is, I mean, there's a lot of pressure put on this guy for this year. With them leaving Froome at home, understandably so, Froome probably would be 30 minutes down by now. But leaving G home and taking him to Tirreno to do the Giro,
right?
I think they screwed up.
I did too.
And I hate to say it because I don't want to second guess these guys. They do it for a living. They're very good at it. But
I got two or three things.
Thomas, in my opinion, should be at the Tour.
First of all, G he's doing really well. He's riding great.
Yep.
Stoically right there in the front.
Yep.
And then you had that Portal, that Nicholas Portal.
Well, and that definitely has affected him.
Yeah,
incredible director, awesome rider. Everybody loved him. The guy was a genius. The guy
wouldn't
knew
he die
what to
of
do.
age 40 in March?
I think he had a severe heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Hey, when your ticket's pulled, it's pulled.
Yeah.
Stage 14.
Yep.
Clermont, Ferrand to Lyon.
Ooh.
To Lyon. This was an awesome stage. This was hard from the get-go, from the gun. Bora driving it. They dropped Bennett again. We saw a really slow disc wheel change in there with the Mavic support using what I thought was a tire iron from the 1930s. I mean, it just blows my mind. You have the drill, you have the Allen head drill to take the through axle off, and these guys are there turning it. Looked like there was moss growing on this guy. I mean, if I would have been that rider, I would have been going bananas. But that said, it just goes to show you. I mean, there's a reason why people have asked me. It's like, well, how come some of these teams are still riding rim brakes? That's why. It's that simple. Quick wheel change, and you're going to see. People are going to disagree with me on this for sure. Like a lot of things, you're going to see a lot of rim brakes used in the fall classics here coming up in Belgium and northern France because it's that quick wheel change. But it was just another cracking stage, man. From the gun, Sunweb got the job done again today.
Attack. That was nonstop. A young team with old school tactics.
Absolutely.
Pretty impressive.
Going in, when your team throws a guy like Thies Benoot off as your first attack, 5-8K out, that tells you how deep they are, how motivated this team is. And with Mark Hirschi's win a few days before, I think they're very motivated in the bus. And then late in the race, 2-3K out, Soren Craig Anderson attacks and he gets a gap and it was game over. I mean, I knew right away with the aerial shot, he looked like he had 200-300 meters and he's putting out 500-600 watts in those last 2K. And for people that don't know what all that kind of stuff is at your power output and stuff, that's incredible numbers.
So we always talked around here, like in racing and stuff with Mark Light, the old Lighty. And a lot of people will always say nobody can hold a 5311 longer than Mark Light. So those guys are holding a 5311 or whatever for like what, 800-900 meters.
Oh, if not longer. Lighty, he's
at 500-600.
Every time I see Lighty's dad walking around Lebanon, I scratch my head. But Lighty's a freak of nature. I mean, he just keeps getting bigger and he keeps getting faster. It's a strange thing. But I want to mention the top three in this stage was Soren Craig Anderson, Luca Mesgin, whatever, from Mitchelton Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a decent sprinter, good small group sprinter, and Simone Consoni from Cofidis. Cofidis is always. I would really love to see Cofidis get a stage win this coming week.
It was Consoni's birthday.
Was it?
Yeah,
that's good to know. There's Billy on point.
So again, Bora did nearly 80% of the workload.
Guys got
80% of the workload on today's stage or in that stage.
And they know. I mean, it's their job. They know it. Bora's a strong team. They have a decent sized budget. They're not a poor team by any means.
Sagan got 23 points back, so he's only down by 43 at this point.
He's chipping away, and it's definitely going to go right down to Paris. I mean, it's hopefully after today, we got to touch on the fact that today's a rest day. Everybody's getting tested again today. There was one positive CCC rider, Tirreno Adriatico in Italy. I don't know how that affects anything. I mean, I think it's just it's going to be a fact of life going into the fall that the guys are going to test positive to the COVID, and it just you quarantine them and you move on. It is what it is. Speaking
of old school strategy by Sunweb, attack. They ended up with three guys on their team in the top 10. Of today's stage.
Just a great effort. I mean, there's a lot of champagne at dinner and loving life. I mean, they come out of this tour at the very least with 2 wins and a bunch of top 5s, and that's just great for that team going forward. I mean, absolutely incredible. I mean, I think they look really good. I mean, these guys look great on the bikes. I mean, the colors really look good. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of that white with the red and black, but man, does that look good on the big screen.
So now we're down to 159 riders at this point by stage 14.
Yep.
And the 159 riders, and the 159th rider is the Lanterne Rouge.
Yep, and that's Jerome Cousins.
Yeah, you liked him before. He's the bike tour guy, the hair, the beard.
It's another team. I mean, they touched on this on the NBC coverage. There's a lot. I think it was one of the coverages. There's a lot of teams without wins. There's a lot of teams without wins so far. So it's going to get this last week.
Total Direct Energy.
They're one of them. They're getting out there. They're getting in the camera and stuff, but it's not enough. You want the win. So,
all right, we're back. Stage 15.
Stage 15.
Solidarity for the solitary. All right.
He's a hell of a card player, by the way. Lyon to Grand Colombier, really hard stage. 2 Cat 1s and an Oars category climb. We didn't touch on Benoit Cosafine, the polka dot jersey by default. The guy, he's the only climber that gets dropped on climbs. I've never seen anything like this.
That's a pet peeve of Lance's, boy. He doesn't like that at all.
It's the truth, though. I mean, I got to agree wholeheartedly with LA on that one. It's pathetic to watch. I mean, this guy, I love that team. I love AG2R. I just love them. They're on Eddie Merckx's. They look good on the bikes. The bikes are awesome. But good God, buddy, it's just pathetic to watch him get dropped. He's getting dropped in the feed zone. I mean, this guy's just, it's unbelievable. He, hopefully, Tuesday, Wednesday, he loses that jersey for good. It's a shame. It's great for that team, the publicity they're getting out of it, but my God, buddy. I mean, he's 30 minutes down on a climb that he should be taking points on. And again, he's better than I'll ever be. Mad props to the guy. He's a pro rider, but good God, man. It's just, it's painful.
There was a couple of crashes that will prove to be foretelling. First of all, what were your thoughts when Youngles takes down Hugita?
He swung off. I mean, it was kind of, it was sort of in more of a, he made it look, it is kind of stupid. He did that kind of wide swing off and shit, but you can't, Hugita he was looking back, like it's been beat the dead horse yesterday by the commentators. You don't look back. You just don't look back. And it sucks. It really sucks for Hugita. I mean, but again, here we go. He nailed his head hard. It sure looked like he did.
Yeah.
They wear those bucket helmets. They wear those POC helmets. So, and then we didn't see it off camera. He crashed again. Now, was that due to the fact that he whacked his head and wasn't in right sense?
Said that he damaged his wrist or his hand, and he couldn't pull when he went to pull the brake lever, and then crashed again.
These guys never want to go out of the tour. They want to finish these races. This is, it's like any of us. We never want to start a race and not in DNF and not finish. It was hard for him. You could see the emotion at the end when he finally stopped, and then later on, you had the crash with Carapaz, and
they were wishing they had Geraint Thomas then for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. And then we didn't see this to follow up. Bob Jungels got taken out by the ambulance later in the stage crash. Look it up on YouTube.
No shit.
Bob Jungels went down, so maybe that was karma coming back to bite him in the ass or something. I mean, he went down pretty hard. It was a bad crash. But yesterday's stage, was one for the books. I mean, it was an incredible stage, very hard, very fast at the start. We'll do the top three real quick. It was Taddy, Primoz, and Richie Port came out of nowhere.
Pogacar, Roglic, and Richie Port.
Yeah, and Richie's leaving Trek Segafredo. Probably there's some
going to Ineos.
Going back to Ineos. Now there is some kind of, that hasn't, I'm sure I read it somewhere that it's been confirmed. I think there's a lot of pressure off of Richie now. I think you're going to see Richie start to ride the way maybe Richie should have been riding all along. But again, he's another one of these he's going to go back. He just had a baby. His wife just had a baby last week. He's going to reevaluate. And I think you'll see 2-3 more really good years out of Port as a super domestique who can still win races. I mean, obviously he's going to be there for, in a few short months, he'll be at the front in the Tour Down Under like he always is. But the top 5 after yesterday, Primo is still up front.
Pogacar
at
Uran,
at
Lopez.
40 seconds. Rigoberto at 134. Miguel and Angel Lopez in 4th. And Simon Yates creeping back up there into 5th, which really surprised me.
And he's at 203, so I guess you got to say he may have a shot because then you got to include Landa at 213.
Absolutely.
So up until 6, those guys are all close.
Those guys are
even Enric Mas is at 216.
They're all fighting. Anything can happen now. They're all fighting for 3rd place. They're all fighting for the podium because I don't think anybody overhauls Primoz and Taddy in 1st and 2nd. And I'm gonna, we'll touch on this real quick at the end, but I mean, boy, is this going to be a race? This is going to be a very interesting race the next week.
We still had three Colombians in the top 10, and Tom Dumoulin shoots up into 10th. That's pretty cool.
Quintana dropped to 9th, which sucks, but he's done. He crashed real hard.
So a shout out to Martin,
Dan
the philosopher.
Dan Martin?
No, Martin Guillermo.
Yeah.
Guillermo Martin, because he was solo in that gap for a long time.
He was hurting.
And he almost made it back. And would he have a crash or no? He had a wheel change or something.
I mean, he came off a little bit at the base of that climb of the Grand Colombier. And when you're chasing, when you're on the hind foot like that the whole time, boy.
And at number 12, another shout out to the old man.
40-year-old.
Valverde.
Alejandro Valverde just hung tough, was in that last group. You got to go all the way down to 13th to find our boy Egon. Brunel had a horrible day yesterday. There was nothing in the engine room from about halfway up the Colombier.
And then Jumbo-visma.
Well,
I mean, what a strong team. I mean, first of all,
5-6 guys at the front driving.
Yeah, Richie Port attacked early, then Sepp Kuss countered. And then then Roglic countered, and then the whole thing was led by Tom Dumoulin.
Yeah. Yeah,
all the way up. He was the last guy off.
Primoz didn't have to do anything to the last 300-400K. It was incredible.
And he still couldn't make the jump.
No, the kid's strong. And it was great to see Taddy have some teammates in there yesterday. UAE had a couple guys up there driving for him early. I mean, I got to give a shout out again. I mean, I got to give major props out to Wout van Aert. The guy is just he's not human. I mean, it's incredible. There's already, all the geniuses online are speculating like they always do. They love the sport, but they want to tear it down every chance they get. Everybody's dope and everybody's this, that, the other thing. I don't believe it. These guys are tested all the time. It doesn't benefit their teams, regardless of the races they win. It doesn't. You get popped for doping now in the type of world it is. That sponsor goes away. 200 guys lose their jobs. You're done. You're done. You're blackballed for the rest of your life, period. And I just don't see it. I don't see these guys taking that. Maybe I'm naive. Say what you want to say, whatever. I just don't see it. I mean, or are they pushing the boundaries as far as they can? Yeah, you bet your ass they are. But I don't believe they're supercharged like they were in the late 90s and through the 2000s. I don't see it.
Shout out to the youngest rider still in the tour, that Maxine Chevalier.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a young tour. I mean, you look at there's a lot of guys in their early 20s in this doing very well. It's a 2-man race now for sure. This was the Queen stage, I think, but then again, maybe Wednesday kind of comes into that too. But just, I can't say enough about Sepp Kuss too. He's just rode. I really thought they were going to hand this win to him.
From Durango.
Yeah, from Durango, Colorado, part of the Durango youth program. And I've heard that mentioned numerous times. But again, go back to your favorite right now, Richie Port. He looked real. I mean, he was coming. Another 50 meters, he might have got the stage win yesterday. He looked really, really good. He's on his own. He can float that bunch and be where he needs to be. And I expect now, I'd be kind of shocked if you don't see him get they can't really they can't let him run because of where he's at in GC now. But because he is up there in the top 10 in GC.
Does he have a team with him? Still not. He's still going to have to serve.
Pretty much. He's on his own. Yeah, he's on his own. But that's fine. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. He's not going to have any issues staying in that front group. That was a big front group yesterday. It was 15 guys, 10 guys, something like that.
And when it was finally decanted down to the remainder, everybody was there except for Bernal.
Egon just, and there was some speculation last night on some of the sites I get my information from, and I don't hide that. Coming off this quarantine, some guys just had a chance to train. I mean, a lot of these countries were completely locked down, and they were on trainers. And I kind of agree with what Andy Schleck said yesterday on Lance's podcast. Some of these guys, you're not going to get Tour de France shape sitting on a turbo. As much as the guys that live on these things want to argue with me about that, you got to be outside. You got to be doing your 30 plus hours a week. And a guy like Wout he was in Belgium. They were allowed to ride outside.
Yeah.
And I agree with what was commented on yesterday. If you were called in one of these lockdown countries, you did your best to get the hell out of there and get to somewhere where you could train. You knew the season was going to start up again. There was no ifs, ands, or I didn't have any doubts that the season was going to start up again because of the money end of it. And
I know you kept urging me, and appropriately so, to put Tour de Gretna back on in the fall. And
it would have been. I mean, it would have been nice. I get both sides of the story. I get the whole.
Gretna's particularly sensitive about the art show deal.
There's a lot of sensitive people out here, and we get that. But I
rode. Speaking of trainers, yes. I rode with Marcy yesterday. She's riding really good, and she brought up when we were talking about training and how these guys, a lot of them were just on the turbos all the time during lockdown, depending on the country they were in. And she reminded me about Floyd coming into her gym and spending at least 4 hours on their trainer. And I thought, oh my God, 4 hours.
Recently?
No, this was, when he was coming up through.
Yeah.
Because we're always talking old school,
Yeah.
All right, so they've got 65 hours.
I want to say something there, but I'll show my respect of a past tour winner and not say it. But we'll keep moving on.
Floyd. All right, so at any rate, so 15's in the books.
Yeah.
So what do we have to look forward to for 16 and 17 coming up Tuesday and Wednesday? But before you do that, give us a little update on Torino Adriatica, please.
Well, yesterday Matthew van der Poel won a stage, which was he's the only guy that can pull off the white shorts in the peloton. He's
besides
Dutch road champion. I don't know about that. Probably by now the leader is known, or the winner is known. Simon Yates, Adam Yates' twin brother on Mitchelton Scott. He has the lead. He's a good enough TT guy that I think he probably gets the win, but I don't know yet. I haven't checked. But, and if it's a race in Italy, so that means they probably start at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, their time. So they're on the road. Their guys are going off now. But Tirreno's an excellent race, and you're starting to get into the one-day races in Northern Europe and Belgium and Northern France and stuff, getting ready for the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix and stuff to follow in October.
Yeah.
World Championships is in Imola, I think a week or so after the Tour
You
finishes.
were saying that's going to be quite a climbing, which is uncharacteristic.
Well, it was going to be in Switzerland, so it was going to be hilly this year. But Switzerland's on a complete lockdown. There's no racing as far as road racing in Switzerland. Now that I think of that, they had a cross race there yesterday, which is kind of strange, but the profile's ugly. I think it's 16,000 feet of climbing in 250K or whatever. So it is ugly. But then, we'll see who comes out of the tour and goes there.
So what are you thinking for stage 16? What's that course look like?
Stage 16 is 164K, 3,500 meters of climbing, which is a lot. Cat 2s, Cat 1s, climbs, Cat 4s. I'm thinking this is when our Benoit Cosnefine loses that jersey, hopefully. And I don't wish any ill will on the guy. I just want to see it on the back of a guide. Maybe a Pierre Latour, somebody that's trying a little harder. Tomorrow's hard. I
think Latour is out.
Not Pierre. No, he was in yesterday's movie.
He was?
Yeah. He's still in there. Hopefully everybody's still in after today with the testing, but we'll see. I have tomorrow earmarked as hard. And I have Wednesday earmarked as harder.
What's Wednesday's course look like?
Wednesday's ugly, man. Wednesday is a 2 horse category, I believe.
Whoa, 2 HC climbs.
2 HCs. They start in Grenoble, the famous cycling town of Grenoble in France. 4,000 meters
Grenoble
of
and Albertville, the Olympics and stuff.
They're in the Alps, and it's man, just
so
an ugly,
here's
ugly
another
day.
when you were talking about meters of climbing. So, I said earlier, if you want to figure out kilometers to miles, you just use 10:6 ratio.
Yes.
So if it's 10 kilometers, it's 6 miles. So if it's 100,
62.
Right, metric century.
Yep.
So then when these guys are riding 200 kilometers, you just take 100, that's 60 miles times 2, and you got about 120. Yep. So when I'm doing meters, I do the 3. Or it's roughly 3.1. Yep. So if it's 5,000 meters of climbing, that's roughly 15,000 feet.
Yeah.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
So there's a quick calculations. You don't need to go to the calculator help or Google or anything. You can just do the quick math in your head.
This has been a hard tour. I mean, this has been a fast tour. I'm sure they're averaging somewhere in the high 30s.
So Tuesday's mountainous, Wednesday's mountainous, then Thursday.
Don't get any easier Thursday. Thursday's ugly. Thursday is a whole bunch of Cat 1s and Oars category in there.
Wow.
168K.
So then we get to Friday, 19, and that's a chance for Sagan to get some points.
Yeah,
right?
that's a little bit more. Well, all these days are going to be a chance for Sagan to get points because Bora is going to continue to put the hurting on everybody.
This guy's got to be hating life, right?
Yeah, they
the
know
bus.
this week.
My.
They're loving the day because they know from now till Paris is just going to
be.
And
then the time trial, uphill time trial
next Saturday on the 19th. Stage 20 is 36 kilometers with basically 1,000 meters of elevation gain flat out. It's going to be interesting because if the kid stays close, he beat Primos in their national TT. So, boy.
So who else you got? What about Iran and Lopez?
They're fighting for third. They're not going to overhaul the 2 guys in the front, not even close. They haven't showed it. Although I will touch on what I saw yesterday, and I saw this during the coverage. I didn't need to be reminded of this last night when I listened to a different podcast. Primos' face didn't look good. He didn't look confident when he crossed that finish line. He gave that kind of that just, man, this kid is fucking strong. He just gave that look to Taddy and Taddy's like full. I mean, the kid is just full of piss and vinegar.
I would second that. I felt the same thing.
Confidence is high. He's recovering well. You got to remember, Taddy's 21, 22 years old. Primos is 30. And he doesn't have the years of cycling in his legs that some of these guys, even for a guy like Podokar, who's
Pogacar is surfing, but I still got to give the nod to Roglic because of the team around him.
Absolutely, and that's his saving grace. And the guy's shown, but he does kind of take a pack at that last week in Grand Tour sometimes. And if that happens this week, we might not even be mentioning him the next show. I mean, he could be out of it. We don't know, and that's why we race. But to say like yesterday, I got to do a little quick story. To our gone Paul Sherwin, who is always there kept Phil in the straight and narrow on the broadcast coverage. Now Bob's doing a great job, I think, of keeping Phil focused and not going off to 1978. Anyway. But I always think of when I see a guy like yesterday with Egan, just took the packet. I always remember hearing No, the
Sherwin.
getting old sucks. Yeah, Paul Sherwin saying about how the man with the big hammer come along and hit him, or better yet, he's in purgatory.
Yeah,
and I remember back in the early '90s, it was either the last Trump race or the DuPont race. I think it was the DuPont race in Wilmington. I'm down there doing my fanboy shit, running around with books and magazines, getting these guys autographs and shit. Staking out at the hotel like a creeper, and I didn't have a white van though, but if I would have known that would have been the thing to have, I would have had one. I do.
Speaking
now,
of which,
I do now,
not to derail you, but shout out to our boy, former co-host Todd Holsopple. He's on his way to Moab in the big white van.
Did somebody give him a map? Does he know where he's going?
I think so.
Did you just point him west? Him and the dog?
Yeah.
Him and the dog. Okay.
Dog is his co-pilot.
Well, that's the dog.
Or Doug.
Hopefully he has him strapped in, but getting back to Paul.
Yes.
I remember Paul came at that time. Paul was the communications guy or the liaison to the press and shit for the Motorola team. And he came down and I knew who Paul Sherwin was from watching cycling in the early 80s and stuff. And I went up and I said, yeah, Mr. Sherwin, can I get your autograph and stuff? And he signed and we started chatting. He was by himself and it was really cool. The guy was, he had that awesome like South African British accent and shit. And
he knows like 7 languages.
Yeah. The dude was just super, super cool. I always remember that from early 90s. That was when I got a chance to get a picture with Sean Kelly, which was just, I was like a little kid there. It was
his cycling team, his club he's still active in that. And he spun off some great riders like
Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Nicholas, right?
Kelly's the only guy still riding
Dan Martin,
a Vitas frame. Kelly's awesome. I mean, the guy, you can barely understand him 90% of the time, but he's forgotten more
it's
than
like a different language. What he speaks.
I mean, that Irish drawl is just incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
But Sherwin was a super cool guy. Most of the guys, I mean, they don't want to talk about cycling. They want to talk about normal stuff when you talk to them. And, if they see that you're not an idiot and you're not, like some weirdo, they're pretty cool. It's this, like I said, I think I said a few weeks ago, it's the only sport where when things get back to normal in the world, I mean, you can go up and talk to these guys, get pictures, autographs, whatever. Yeah. They're really approachable. I mean, sometimes they're just still in awe of where they are, The thing
that I like, by the way, what's your mug today, John? Mine is the Porch and Pantry this day.
Mine is the Jigger Shop.
Oh, yeah,
and
baby.
I believe the Jigger Shop is still open select
past
weekends
Labor
into
Day?
the fall. Wow. Well, they got new owners and stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
Capitalism's king, And
what I want to say is philosophically, when I look at the Tour de France, I look at like life in a microcosm because like the human race, the Tour de France race. So you've got people from all walks of life, from all nationalities with one common goal to win that race. And you're basically you're in a bubble. You're moving along throughout the country of France or whatever. And you've got support staff, you've got technology, you've got training, you've got, when you're not on the bike, there's so much stuff going on. So the end result of that is that you mix all these various teams up with all these various talents and you get the best rider in the world. And so I'm not going to get political on this, but if we could somehow harness that same spirit throughout America, then we would be unstoppable. Just saying. That's the philosophy of the Peloton, which I thoroughly enjoy. Does that kind of hit home with you a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, it's, again, I mean, people are absolutely amazed that I've stayed apolitical through all this. People that know me know how I feel. But again, it's just, the distraction's always there. These guys focus for 3 weeks and some of them focus for 6 or 9. There's guys doing the tour that are going to be doing certainly one of the other grand tours and a really compact time span here. We forget this year that they're going to race into November. There's no break.
Yeah. And then they got to get it fired
they're right
up.
Back down. Some of these guys are going to be right back down in early January or late December in Australia to start the season. If things go as hopefully as they go for next year.
Early on, you made a point that was really interesting to me about that if they didn't race at the end of the season this year, if they didn't get racing back, that a lot of these teams were going to go away.
Absolutely.
It's such a big advertising marketing program.
None of these clubs, they don't get any TV money. They don't get any outside. They got to go get their sponsorship money. And believe me, some of these teams are working on a budget that would just blow your mind. The fact that they can keep these guys together, pay everybody. I mean, it's not just these 30 riders or 25 riders on a team. It's at least another, it's probably a 1-to-5. Well, it's not a 1-to-5 ratio, but it's probably a 1-to-2, 1-to-3 ratio for rider to team support. Each one of these teams carries 5 or 6 full-time mechanics. They carry, well, now even more because all these teams are racing. Most of these teams got 3 teams going at once. Every team at the Tour's got a team at the Tour. They got a team at Tirreno. They got a team in northern Belgium yesterday, in Belgium for the Antwerp
and then
race.
They got the women's team,
and a lot of them have women's teams, which are and really the untalked about victim of COVID is going to be the women's teams. The women's teams have just been decimated. I mean, it sucks for them. It's really hard to keep this kind of sponsorship going, and I'm not even going to get into the different aspects of all this stuff because we could talk for hours on all that, but
we could.
It sucks. I mean, it really, if you knew what the budgets of some of these teams were compared to other sports, it would blow your mind on what they accomplish. But they get it done. If we wouldn't have raced this year, I think we probably would have lost 4 to 5 Grand or World Tour teams. I think most of your women's teams would be gone, and your domestic scene in the United States would be gone. Because there's no racing in the U.S. this year for these domestic programs. Now Raleigh, as a matter of fact, is over in Europe racing. They had a really good race yesterday at the Antwerp race with Robin Carpenter, their first race back, Philly kid.
Yep.
He had a great race. He ended up, I think, in the top 15, and he cramped a little bit in the finish, or he would have probably been a little higher up in the group sprint coming in the chase group. There were 3 guys off. But there you go. I mean, they're in Europe racing. There's nothing in the United States the rest of this year. And you're going to see all these small little teams start to go away. I mean, ask our buddy Ryan DeWalt what it's like to keep Skyline going with no domestic racing. And it's really tough. I mean, it's all about money. Nobody, they're not flying to races. They're in a van. They're driving to this stuff all around the U.S. and they live on the prize money. And that's some of the purses at some of these, downtown crits, evening crits, the national level races is pretty good for these guys. And, boy, it's just not there. And hopefully, depending on how things loosen up for next year and stuff, I mean, we could be looking at this for a few years in the United States. I mean, who knows? I mean, this isn't anything anyone worries about. I mean, I was so happy that the stick and ball sports can play in empty stadiums because their TV revenue we can't get rid of that TV revenue. So I was really over the moon when I flicked right by all the professional sports yesterday. It made me feel really good.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna look at, I always say that the national debt, the debt.org, if you just change the word debt and put in stimulus, which I believe it is, all of a sudden it has a good connotation. So then I'm going to take you back to 9/11, which we weren't on air for that. Yep. But we certainly want to pay homage to that and respect for everything that was done. But what happened was that kind of fundamentally changed the world. When it was happened, everybody was, oh my God, this is horrible. But I thought after that, we were much better able to handle terrorism, both in the world and at home. Airplane hijacks became almost done. They did the firewall thing and going into the pilot area, into the front of the jets and so on and so forth. So ultimately it became a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And every time we've adjusted for terrorism, we've gotten stronger. And so I'm going to suggest that the COVID thing, and I'm not trying to demean all the people that died and have cost, it's been very costly. But the end result is that we are much more of a compartmentalized society now. Yeah. And we're not going to go back to 100,000 people in a crowd all the time. So, relative to future diseases that we might come across, or flu viruses or terrorism or whatever, I think that we are much more adept to handle this going forward. So at the end of the day, we're going to be stronger because of it. Hence why I wore this T-shirt today, which is solidarity for the solitary.
Yeah, dude, you're right in the money. I mean, I think, we're pretty resilient. It's what the It's what the politicians and shit they don't want. They don't want us realizing that we're all in the same boat. You know, it's such a cliche thing to say today, but we are. I mean, the regular standard American or worldwide resident, we're all in the same boat. I mean, we need to, you know, what I see coming out of this with being in this industry, in this business is, you know, there's more people spending time with their families. There's more people getting out, outdoorsy shit, not just bikes. You know, you can't buy kayaks. You can't, there's no outdoors product that you can buy at all. You're like a dog over there hitting the microphone.
I just want to see if it made a sound.
It probably did. But the good thing that comes out of this is I think that 75, 80% of the people that just bought bikes or just got into outdoorsy stuff are going to stay into outdoorsy stuff. So that's a good thing. That's the positive you can take out of
That's what I'm trying to say here is that we're going to come out of this stronger. And for those of you who say, you know, America's going to hell and this is terrible. It's like, no. This, just like in life, John,
everybody underestimates what we can do as a society.
Right. And let me ask you this, John, whenever you have, like you've had some serious tragedy in your life, and when that happens, you always say, you know, it happened for a reason and I'm going to come out of this stronger.
Absolutely.
And you do. So
you have to.
People out there, just look at COVID as something that's going to make you stronger when we come out of it. If it doesn't kill you.
There's always positives in everything.
Correct.
You can face them or you can
and that's where I fault the media because they just keep dwelling on the negative.
There's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that.
The next stage 16 tomorrow, if you get a chance to watch it, it's going to be ugly. Stage 17 is even going to be uglier because, I mean, we're getting to the point now where if Taddy wants to win this thing, he's got to make his move. He can't wait till Saturday. And other guys too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rigoberto make a move to you know, try to get a few seconds back, whatever, to solidify third place, getting on that box with second time in his career, I believe. So this week is going to be really good.
Thanks, John. Great podcast today. You're so prepared. I love talking to you. It motivates me so much to go out on the bike, like as if I need that. But a final word to our sponsors again, and potentially sponsors that we hope to get, and that would be Theragun. And you can find these online. And as I said, we were using them yesterday after the mountain bike ride, and they're just awesome, man. Right in there.
Freaking
awesome.
me out. 9 o'clock in the morning. He's got the vibrator going.
And thank you, Josh. Another great day. Thanks for the coffee.
Man behind the camera.
The hospitality was tremendous.
Everything.
And thanks to Guerciotti Bicycles of Milan, Italy, and Alessandro Guerciotti, and that's GuerciottiUSA.com. And of course,
lights.
It is the season. Lupine
soon.
Lights.
Very soon.
LupineNorthAmerica.com and Deluxe Bikes. And again, a shout out to Josh Zaring Studios, the new logo. Very impressive today.
Jay-Z.
Thanks for the complimentary coffee and Hershey bars.
Not to be confused with Mark Hershey.
See you guys. See you in a week.
As Billy says, peace out.
Peace out.